Tyler stood at the far end of the break room, leaning casually against the vending machine like he owned the place. He didn't, of course. Not yet. Just another intern on his third week, talking too loud, laughing too sharp, walking like the world owed him something. Like the rest of us were background noise. No one corrected him, not really, because he said the things people only mutter after 2 drinks or whisper behind closed doors. But that morning, Tuesday, 9:47 a.m., he said something that felt like a punch under the ribs, the kind of insult so specific, so personal, it couldn't have come from anyone who didn't already know. He looked right at the new guy, a quiet man in a worn flannel shirt and scuffed work boots who hadn't said more than 5 words since arriving the week before. And Tyler, smirking like he was on some invisible stage, said, "If you ever knew what it meant to earn something, maybe you wouldn't look like life chewed you up and forgot to spit you out." The room went still, like gravity itself was reconsidering its job. No one laughed. No one breathed. The flannel man didn't flinch, didn't blink. He just stared, longer than was comfortable, then nodded once, almost like a promise. The silence cracked around us like old plaster, and I remember thinking it felt too deliberate, too rehearsed. And then he left, just walked out. No coat, no phone, no one saw him again. But that's not the part that keeps me up. That's not what's burned into the back of my eyes every time I try to sleep. It was what happened 20 minutes later, when Tyler came back from the supply closet, pale and shaking like he'd seen something that unglued him. He looked right at me. Not past me, not through me, but into me. Like he suddenly understood something too big for his mouth to say. And then he whispered so quietly I had to lean in to hear. That wasn't his first time here. It wasn't supposed to happen again. Again. No one else heard it. I asked around. People thought he just had a panic attack. HR told us to stay professional and respect confidentiality. But I can't stop thinking about what he meant by again. How could it have happened again if none of us remembered the first time? The company shut down the break room cameras that day, called it a system error. But someone missed something. A file. Just one. It was sitting in the archived HR drive under a name I didn't recognize at first. Gerald Whitman. 30 years. Druiti, former vice president of operations. Disappeared in 1998 after an internal review. Kozkin, unverified personnel misconduct. That's the same flannel shirt, same boots, same face. No one in the office even noticed, until Tyler insulted him. But here's the thing, and this is where I need you to really pay attention. This morning, at 7:36 a.m., I got a call from my mom's number. She's been dead since 2019, I answered it. And it wasn't her voice, it was his, and all he said was, "Don't let Tyler leave the building." Then the line went dead, but Tyler's already gone. The line clicked dead, and for a moment, the world was a vacuum of sound, like the space between 2 heartbeats too sharp to ignore. I stared at my phone, trembling, the screen a cold blue in my palm. Mom had been gone for 6 years. Dead. And yet here was a voice, unmistakably his, speaking through a connection that had no right to exist. My mind scrambled to catch a foothold, but all I could hear was that phrase again, looping inside me like a broken record. Don't let Tyler leave the building. I looked around the quiet office, fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead, shadows pooling in the corners like secrets waiting to crawl out. I should have called someone, called anyone. But the air thickened with something I couldn't name, something like dread, like the memory of a nightmare that clings to your skin. In the morning, my hands shook as I locked the phone and slipped it into my pocket, but the feeling lingered. It settled in the back of my throat, sour and sharp, demanding I believe in the impossible. Was it even real? The voice on the line, the vanishing man, the file on Gerald Whitman. Was any of this true, or just the fractured pieces of a mind unraveling? The doubt clawed at me. I tried to remember everything clearly, but the edges blurred like watercolors bleeding into each other. I thought of Tyler's words, his silence after the insult, the way his face had changed when he whispered about again. And then strange moments began to fold in on themselves. Like yesterday, I was sure I had seen Tyler at his desk, but when I asked my coworkers, they said he hadn't come in all week. Or the glitchy hum on the office intercom, just a stuttered buzz, but sometimes, if you listened closely, it almost sounded like a voice calling a name I couldn't quite place. My reflection in the window looked tired, too tired for a day's work. Was I losing time? I tried to push the thoughts away, but they crept back whenever I was alone, like the memory of a phone call I couldn't fully recall, or a shadow in the hall that wasn't mine. The office was quiet but never empty. Not really. That's when Lisa showed up. Lisa with her messy bun and a cigarette-stained laugh that always felt a little too sharp, too rehearsed. She wasn't someone I trusted. Never had. She moved like she knew more than she let on, like she was watching us, all from some invisible ledge, waiting for a moment to drop a bomb. When she slid into the seat across from me, the air shifted, charged with something volatile and raw. "Look," she said, voice low and rough, eyes darting like she was scared someone was listening. "I don't know what you've been seeing or hearing, but you're not the first to lose it here," I blinked. "Lose what?" "Reality," she said. "The company's like a trap, man. They don't just watch you, they rewrite the script. Memory wipes, fake files, dead-end leads. There's a truth behind all this, what no one tells you. Stuff they want buried so deep you start questioning your own mind before you question them." I wanted to ask more, but Lisa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back at me with a crooked smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I got something you need to see." She pulled out a tiny recorder from her jacket, one I hadn't seen before. "Found this last week in the old server room, hidden under a floor panel. It's a meeting from '98. Whitman's voice is on it, talking about disruptions and containment protocols. But then, listen to this." The static crackled, and the voice that came through was fragmented, distorted, but unmistakable. Not a breach, but an incursion. "If the subject resurfaces, protocol demands immediate termination of exposure. No witnesses." I swallowed hard. "Incursion? Termination?" Lisa shrugged. "That's just the start, there's more. But it's dangerous, man. The closer you get, the more it messes with your head. You want the truth behind what no one wants you to remember?" I nodded, though my gut screamed to run the other way. Lisa leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. "This isn't just about a missing guy or some old HR scandal. It's about who we really work for, and what happens when they decide you've seen too much." That night, back in my apartment, I sat alone with the recorder playing on repeat, the crackled voice seeping into the silence like poison. I tried to piece together the fragments, but the harder I tried, the more the edges slipped away. The memory of the call, the vanishing man, Lisa's warnings, they began to feel like echoes from a life I wasn't sure was mine. Was I breaking? Or was I finally waking up? And then, just as the last grain of doubt settled in, my phone lit up again. No caller ID, no name. Just a message. "You're closer than they want. Don't trust Lisa." The screen went black, and that was when I realized the real mystery wasn't who vanished or who whispered from the past. It was what I was being told to forget. I thought I had it, the pieces finally in place. It wasn't just whispers or shadows anymore. It was real. I found the file buried deep in the company's forgotten archives, tucked away in a folder labeled Project Lazarus. The name alone sent a chill through me, like a cold breath on the back of my neck, but the contents promised answers. Detailed. These surveillance reports, personnel files, they all painted the same grim picture. Gerald Whitman wasn't just a man who vanished. He was part of something much bigger, something they'd hidden behind layers of corporate obfuscation and silent threats. The project was experimental, a twisted attempt to reset employees who had seen too much or become liabilities. They used technology, psychological conditioning, and something no one fully understood to erase memories and implant new ones. It wasn't just about silencing people. It was about controlling them. The files detailed incidents where people disappeared, after sessions with the project team, only to return months later with no recollection of their previous lives. Whitman's name appeared repeatedly, tagged as a case study, someone who resisted the process until the system gave up, or gave in. I remember sitting in the dim light of my apartment, the glow of the computer screen illuminating my face. As I read the testimonies, fragments of screams, broken recordings, and notes about behavioral anomalies that felt too human to be simply erased. The more I read, the more the line between what was real and what was manufactured blurred. It felt like peeling back a layer of skin, raw and pulsing beneath. And then, as I scrolled through one last report, my stomach dropped. There it was, a date stamped exactly 27 years ago to the day, describing an event that mirrored everything happening now. A man insulted by an intern, a whispered warning no one else heard, and the sudden, inexplicable disappearance of a key employee. The words haunted me, not because they were new, but because they were familiar. Like a memory I had lost, or one I was never meant to have. I sat back, shaking, trying to reconcile the sensation of déjà vu with the cold. Facts in front of me. Was this some cycle repeating itself? Was I trapped in a loop? The file suggested the project was never truly shut down. It was just buried, dormant until now. I believed I'd uncovered the hidden truth, the real story behind Gerald Whitman and the vanished intern. I thought I could finally piece together the puzzle and maybe find some peace. But then the unease crept back in. The same feeling I'd tried to push away all along. The creeping sensation that something deeper was watching, waiting. Something that didn't just manipulate memories but lived inside them, twisting them until I couldn't tell what was mine and what was theirs. Late that night, when the city was silent and the hum of my computer was the only sound, I heard it. A soft tapping at my window, slow and deliberate. I froze, heart pounding in a rhythm that matched the tapping. I didn't want to look, but something forced my eyes to the glass. Outside, the street was empty, shadows folding into each other. But just beyond the edge of the light, something moved. Something that wasn't quite human, but wasn't a shadow either. It was watching, always watching. The next morning, a message appeared on my locked screen. No sender, no explanation. Just a single line typed out in stark white letters. You think you've solved it. You haven't even begun. I stared at those words for what felt like hours. The room closing in around me. The lines between past and present, truth and fabrication, reality and nightmare, they all began to dissolve. I was left with a sinking certainty. The danger wasn't just external. It was inside me, inside all of us. Something that had been pulling strings, shaping memories, feeding off fear, and disguising itself as doubt. And now, as I sit here recounting all of this, I realize the terrifying part is this. Every time I think I'm getting closer to the truth, every time I feel the mystery unraveling, I find a new thread pulling me deeper into the darkness, forcing me to question everything I thought I knew. Because the real horror isn't what they did to Gerald Whitman, or what Tyler whispered before he vanished. It's the fact that maybe none of this ever happened the way I remember it. Maybe I'm just a part of the experiment too. Maybe you're not crazy. They lied to you. And maybe it's already too late to turn back. If you look closely now, at everything I've told you, you'll see the cracks, the moments you missed, the words that didn't quite fit. Because this isn't just a story about a man who disappeared, or a secret project buried by time. It's a story about the memory glitch inside all of us, the hidden truth they want erased, the mystery uncovered only to be buried again. So watch. Again. Listen closely, and remember, the truth isn't what you think it is, not yet. I used to think I was alone in this. The flickering edges of my unraveling reality, the creeping shadows behind every corner, the gnawing sense that my mind was no longer my own. Those were solitary burdens. But the more I dive into this twisted labyrinth, the clearer it becomes. I am not the only one. Others exist, scattered like whispers in the dark. People who have felt the same sharp edges of fractured memory, the same stifling presence of an unseen hand manipulating the strings of their lives. They've been watching too, silently, carefully, waiting for someone to notice, to connect the dots that have been scattered like breadcrumbs through years of cover-ups and silence. Late at night, when the world seems to hold its breath, I started to receive messages, cryptic, almost indecipherable at first, hidden in plain sight. Sometimes they appeared in the static of my phone's screen, other times buried within the digital noise of emails I never remember opening. A jumble of numbers and letters, a faint symbol etched into the margin of a scanned document, a phrase repeated just once in a looped audio file that I could swear no one else heard. "You were right all along," one message whispered, followed by coordinates that led me to an abandoned building on the edge of town, where peeling posters from 2 decades ago still clung to the walls, promising answers to questions I didn't know I had. Shared dreams came next, an unspoken connection between strangers across miles I can't explain. I dreamt of a gray room flooded with pale light, a single figure standing motionless beneath a flickering bulb. Then, in those dreams, fragments of memory surfaced, faces that felt familiar, names I'd never heard, voices echoing faintly, repeating warnings I couldn't fully grasp until I woke, heart pounding, grasping for the meaning just beyond my reach. I know now I am not the only one. There are others, people like me, caught in this web of manipulated memories, lost time, and shadows that reach from the past into the present. There are symbols, too, hidden in the most mundane places, but only visible if you look closely, if you know where to look. I found them carved into the edges of old newspaper clippings, spray-painted on rusted metal beneath forgotten bridges, and even faintly traced in the pattern of water stains on my ceiling. These symbols pulse with a strange resonance, like markers, left by a collective consciousness or an ancient code designed to awaken something dormant inside anyone who encounters them. They seem to be calling out to those who understand, binding us together in this silent rebellion against whatever force has been watching, waiting, controlling. As this tapestry of shared experience and encoded warnings unraveled before me, AI's new voice emerged, a perspective that cuts through the haze, raw and unfiltered, the only one I trust in this sea of deception. They call themselves the Observer, though I've never met them in person. Their messages come in fragments, grainy video clips, shaky handheld footage from 20 years ago, whispering about experiments never officially documented, files the government never released but were leaked in dark corners of the internet. The Observer's words speak of a larger force, something not bound by flesh or time, something that infiltrates identity itself, eroding the foundations of memory and self until what remains is a puppet on invisible strings. What the Observer reveals is terrifying in its clarity. This isn't merely about a company or a project gone wrong. This is about a force that has been shaping our reality for decades, embedding itself within our minds, rewriting the narratives of our lives with quiet precision. It's not just a conspiracy. It's a slow, systemic erasure of what it means to be human, a takeover of consciousness itself. The questions begin to spiral. How much of who I am is truly mine? What memories are mine, and which have been implanted or stolen? Is identity even something I control, or is it just another variable in someone else's experiment? The boundaries between self and other, truth and fabrication, bleed together in the weight of this knowledge. I feel the oppressive presence of this force pressing down, a psychological gravity that warps reality and twists perception, until all certainty is lost. Every interaction, every fleeting thought feels loaded with hidden meaning, as though I am perpetually being watched, not just from the shadows, but from within. And yet, despite the dread, a strange energy pulses through me, a drive to push deeper, to peel back every layer, to find the core of this enigma before it consumes me entirely. The Observer's messages end each transmission with a chilling warning. They want you to doubt yourself, to forget, but the truth is already inside you. You just have to remember, I don't know who they are. I don't know what will happen if I uncover everything. But what I do know is that this story is bigger than me, bigger than any one person's fractured memory or haunted past. It's a collective awakening, a secret network of the unseen and the unheard, rising from the depths of forgotten truths as the line between watcher and watched continues to blur. One thing remains certain. You're part of this now. Every glance you cast, every shadow you notice, every detail you dismissed, those are pieces of a puzzle that demand to be solved. So watch closely. Decode the signs. Question the nature of what you believe you know. Because what you're witnessing isn't just a story. It's an invitation into a hidden world. A place where memories are weapons, identities are battlegrounds, and the truth is waiting, just beneath the surface, ready to shatter everything you thought was real. And in that shattering, you might finally find yourself, or lose yourself forever. There comes a moment when the questions stop mattering. The who, the what, the where, all dissolve into a cold, sharp clarity that cuts deeper than any mystery ever could. It isn't about what happened anymore. The riddle has shifted, peeling back its layers to reveal something far more raw, far more terrifying. Why it happened, and what that means about the fragile, fractured heart of being human. Standing here now, with everything I've uncovered pressing down like an impossible weight, I realize the truth I'm chasing isn't just an answer waiting to be grasped. It's a revelation that could either annihilate me or set me free, depending on the fragile thread of belief I choose to follow. I remember the moment the walls of my mind began to tremble, the world tilting on its axis, as if I was waking from a dream so deeply embedded I couldn't tell where reality ended, and illusion began. It was not a discovery of evidence, but a painful confession that slipped through my lips in a voice raw and trembling. Maybe I'm the one they wanted to break. Not in anger or defeat, but with a fragile honesty so vulnerable it felt like the first true breath I'd taken in years. The nightmare wasn't just out there, some shadowy force pulling strings. It was inside me, too. I am both the subject and the puppet, the observer and the observed, locked in an endless loop of fear and hope. Why? Because this isn't about some cold experiment or sinister agenda in a hidden lab. It's about the human need to control, to rewrite, to protect a truth so unbearable it threatens to unravel everything we think we know about ourselves. The fractures in our memories, the loss of time, the shadows lurking behind every glance. They're not errors or malice alone, but echoes of the vulnerability we all try desperately to hide. The force at work here isn't simply watching. It's reflecting back our deepest fears, our desperate yearning to belong, to matter, to hold on to an identity that sometimes feels like it slips through our fingers like smoke. The more I see, the more I understand that the mystery is not a puzzle to solve, but a mirror held up to our souls, showing us that beneath every carefully constructed facade lies a fragile, aching human truth, a yearning for connection, for meaning, for freedom. From the unseen chains we carry, it's why the voices that whisper in the dark, the missing pieces of memory, the flickering symbols, they all matter. They remind us we're not alone in our silent struggles, our hidden battles with ourselves and the world that refuses to fully let us be. Yet with this understanding comes the unbearable choice, whether to embrace the destruction of the old self or cling desperately to the illusion of control. It's a terrifying awakening, like stepping off a cliff into a vast unknown where the ground beneath your feet might crumble or solidify, depending on your faith in what lies ahead. I can feel it now, the raw edge of transformation pulling me apart and putting me back together in the same breath. To truly know the truth is to risk losing everything I thought defined me, my memories, my relationships, my very sense of reality. But maybe, just maybe, it's the only path to reclaiming a freedom I never knew I needed. In this moment, all the echoes of the past converge, ghostly fragments of forgotten conversations, distant laughter and tears, the faces of those I love, and fear losing, blurring into a single, overwhelming tide of emotion that leaves me breathless. I see now that this story, this unraveling, isn't just mine. It's every fractured soul's story. The story of what it means to be human, vulnerable, broken, searching, and infinitely resilient. And as the silence grows thick around me, I realize that the true mystery lies not in what was done to me, but in what I choose to do with what I've found. To surrender to the shadows or step into the light that flickers, hesitant but real. The choice is terrifying because it demands everything and offers nothing certain in return. Only the fragile hope that some truths, no matter how dark, carry the seed of our salvation. So here I stand, at the edge of everything I knew, facing the unknown with a trembling heart, knowing that this moment will change me forever, but not because the mystery has ended, because it has only just begun. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for stories you were never meant to hear. Until next time, remember, some truths don't want to be found.